We're here to talk about CTV today. I am incredibly excited about this session. I think there's so much for us to get into. I've got an incredibly expert panel joining me. And there's a lot of issues and a lot of us to talk for half an hour. So without further delay, I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves, tell you what they do. I'll start with you, Chris, down the other end.
Cheers, John. Hi, everyone. My name's Chris. I'm the commercial director for a company called Publica. We're a CTV ad server, and I look after the JAPAC region.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie. I'm a performance director at dentsu. So I oversee performance portfolios for our clients and also incorporate like the programmatic solutions and just trying to bring that forward, advanced solutions for our clients.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anannya. I work with the APAC regional team of Omnicom Media Group. I look after partnerships and product. I hope everyone's feeling awake after the late lunch, but here we are.
Hello, I'm Jasmine. I'm in initiative. I work on strategy, and I work with clients from different categories, including consumer goods, pharmaceuticals, etc. Nice to meet you all.
I'm Lara, Izlan. I work for ITV, which is the UK's largest commercial broadcaster. Part of ITV is also ITV Studios, which is a global production company. I've been working in data and insight in media for the better part of 25 years. I'm very conscious that I don't have regional experience, but hopefully some of the learnings that we've had over the years from the UK and the US will be interesting here. And just for completeness as well, I'm also a non-executive board director for a company called Ubiquity, which is a global media measurement company.
I'm sure you've got plenty to give to the discussion, Lara, despite being UK-based, don't you worry. Saying that, though, I'm going to skip you for the first question because we're going to do some APAC scene setting. I want to hear a little bit about how the adoption of CTV is evolving in the APAC region, some of the unique consumer behaviours and what we're seeing in CTV. Chris, I'm going to throw that to you first.
Yeah, so I mean, look, I'd say we're in the epicenter right now. Last year, 38% of CTV spend happened in our region. If you look at the compound annual growth rate, it's going to be 14% by 2030. So we're in a really good place. We've also got the gift of hindsight where we can see what's been working well in other markets, take the best bits of that, apply it into APAC. You've got markets like in Australia, Japan, where penetration's really high right now. Some would argue maybe in terms of user base, it's flatlined a bit because everyone's got, a CTV in the household, there's an oversupply, maybe not enough demand, whereas in Southeast Asia, you've now got more TVs hitting homes, especially in the middle class. One of our global partners, Samsung Ads, they spun up a team in Southeast Asia last year. I think as well, LG, other OEMs are also having more teams on the ground, which again informs that there is a lot of activity. And then I think the big, not elephant in the room, but the sleeping giant is India. I was in Korea 2 weeks ago, met with 2 large OEMs, the 2 priority markets, India and Latam. Funnily enough, I was at a forum last year where I met someone from TCL, and I asked them, why do you sponsor the Big Bash in Australia? So for those who don't know what Big Bash is, it's like a fast form of cricket. And I said, why do you sponsor Big Bash in Australia? And they just said, so people in India see it. And so that, again, gives you a sign that there is penetration and growth in that market. And even linear last year was still growing. So there's a lot happening. We're very digitally savvy, young. So, yeah, very exciting time to be in APAC.
Yeah, definitely. And Stephanie, it's something we've discussed previously as well in terms of, it's easy for me to talk about APAC as kind of a homogenous region, but it's made up of so many different exciting individual markets. And, that's how you're seeing that and the different trends across different regions.
Yeah, so I think as consumers, we are, getting on board with CTV. I think it's one of the main mediums, basically, where we consume content today. But I guess on the ground, when we talk about, where we can place brands and advertisers, it's still so super fragmented. And with that fragmentation, brings a lot of challenges, new challenges for us as well as agencies to bring new solutions to the table. But with that fragmentation, I would say on the other side of it is a lot of diversity, which means then a lot more opportunities as well for us to engage consumers with new experiences. So I think, whilst we go into each of the markets and understand each of them, know the different preferences, and then we can figure out new ways to really engage and create new experiences from that.
Yeah, definitely. Anannya, how are you feeling about that, and how are you seeing growth in the region CTV at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we've received this question from our clients over the last couple of years very often. And to address that at Omnicom APAC, we ran a 14-market, 10,000 plus respondent study to understand how is CTV evolving in the region, but also who are the people who are watching this. Right? And the insights which came out of that were pretty straightforward. APAC leads both in terms of CTV ownership growth and in terms of subscriptions on OTT platforms. Now, to understand who are these people who are driving this growth, the answer was very clear. These were young audiences, so about 25 to 40 in age group. They were affluent, well above the average income in any of the markets, from India to Australia to Indonesia, everywhere. And they were all socially connected. So most of the viewing was happening in a co-viewing environment with a friend, family, partner, flatmates, what you may have, right? So I think that's the picture, the writing on the wall is very, very clear. That CTV is here, it's a social experience, and it's allowing clients to deliver memorable, creative experiences for consumers.
Excellent. Jasmine, how do you feel CTV is developed across your region?
Yeah, I share the same views as them, because I know that CTV, smart TVs generally, they're just getting more and more affordable, and that's what's fueling the actual penetration growth, whether it's India, Indonesia, Vietnam. I think what actually stands out to me is, as you said, it's almost like a social experience, and behind that social experience, what I'm seeing is a lot of the most popular content is often very localized. Sure, you have like Squid Game, which is globally popular, but you've also see like a lot of content production companies working with local stations like maybe ABS-CBN in the Philippines, etc. And that's really changing the popularity of CTV in this region. I think another thing that I wanted to flag is just in terms of the device ownership, a lot of the people in this region might have owned a mobile before they even own like a connector or smart TV. And then therefore, they're really hardwired to use like both devices at the same time, and that really fuels the social experience you were talking about.
Yeah, well, you've all touched on different points there, and the regional complexities it's so interesting and such a
Can I say something really quickly?
I can bring you in.
I think what's really interesting is like all of you have kind of a very clear view of what CTV is, which just goes to show how much more advanced this region is. Because what we're seeing in the UK and Europe actually is a lot of debate about how you define CTV. Is it defined by the channel? Is it defined by the type of content? Is it defined by kind of short form versus long form? Is it defined by the device? As you said, you equated connected TV with smart TVs. In fact, all TVs will be, kind of IP ID enabled very soon, if it's not already, probably already in Asia. And it's great, actually, to kind of go past that debate and actually think about the strategies for making, connected TV, CTVs as powerful as possible for, kind of the brands and the advertising community.
Yeah, I was hoping you would bring some clarity onto that.
I'm going to give you the compliment first.
Well, yeah, we do spend a lot of time trying to define CTV, which is one of the most interesting points of it. I'm going to move us on to the advertising landscape and how programmatic is really helping transform CTV and where the real opportunities are lying in the entertainment industry. Lara, I'll come to you first on that one. How have you seen that develop in your career? How is programmatic really pushing CTV?
So kind of as a little bit more context, before joining ITV, I was actually head of programmatic for 2 different companies. So I saw sort of programmatic evolution for media owners at quite an early stage, at least from a UK perspective. And in those early days, we certainly made lots of mistakes, which I think, as we are now rolling out programmatic technologies on CTV, I can see that we've learned from some of the mistakes of the past, sort of the way that programmatic used to be a little bit of a Wild West. Thankfully, we've learned a lot from that, and we've kind of moved on and matured in how we apply it today, which is brilliant. I think in terms of transforming the industry, from my experience across multiple media owners, I think I put it into 3 buckets, really, and I'll try to go through them quickly. The first bucket is, I think, how it's transforming the opportunities for advertisers to access what used to be seen as quite premium channel of advertising channel, right? So I think programmatic has really democratized the opportunity for some of the smaller brands, some of the direct-to-consumer brands, startups even, to have access to effectively the large screen and to appear next to kind of long-form and premium content in a way that wasn't really possible before. And I think that is massive, and as ITV, for example, even though we work with all the big blue chip companies, those are the advertisers that primarily invest in TV, we now have specific programs to open up to small, medium enterprises as well. So that democratization, I think, is massive. The second sort of area of change that I've seen is, and specifically for TV, like TV, particularly legacy broadcast TV, has always been seen as a medium for brand building, so kind of awareness. It's very strong research studies that correlate investment with brand consideration and brand awareness. But with CTV and the technologies behind it, and particularly where I'm interested in the data that powers all of it, it has opened up TV to kind of a broader outcomes lens. And, you can use it for kind of more than just the brand building, but actually getting much closer to activation, action, and outcomes, which is absolutely brilliant. And if I can just say the third one really quickly, how it's changed, is I think it's also changed how we operate as an entertainment, news and entertainment company, as a media owner. It's no longer sort of siloed, sort of advertising over here and content creation over here. The fact that programmatic relies so much on data, and data actually connects what we do from a content creation perspective, to a marketing perspective, to a product perspective, all the way to advertising. It means that actually this programmatic advertising has actually kind of influenced the media owners, within the media owners, a lot as well.
Excellent. Chris, I'm going to bring you in on this one. How do you think programmatic, where are the opportunities that lie for advertisers now?
I mean, yeah, just to back that up, I mean, I'd say it's just passing more signal into the bid stream. It's allowing that democratization. Although, look, to be honest with you, my job is in TV, so I watch television for work, and that is my job, right? So I do watch a lot of TV. I'm still not seeing those mid-tier advertisers on there, if I'm honest. I still think there's a lot more that needs to happen around some of those entry points and just educating some of those mid-tier buyers that, look, the muscle memory that you have from social, from display, you can execute and deploy that onto the biggest screen in the house. Plus as well, as an ad server that sits on the sell side, we can now send so many parameters downstream where you can target and assign value to not just targeting a genre. It could be an actor, it could be an actual sport that is windsurfing, it could be a location. I mean, you can get very, very granular as you want, but then I'd argue if you're going to go that granular, I'll just go to that person's house and sell it myself. Because I do think, TV is still a upper funnel platform that is now fused with that attribution loop where you can use call to actions and IDs to tie back that user journey. But yeah, it's all there and available, but I do still think that democratization that we've talked about for a few years now, it still needs to happen. But again, that's just something that we have to educate on and push downstream.
Yeah, fair enough. Stephanie, how have you seen programmatic really develop? How do you advise on it?
Yeah, so I think they've covered the main gist, right, of like, how it's become more accessible. And I think that just provides us planners, media planners, a lot more options, a lot more touch points to bring relevance to the audiences that we're trying to reach. I think from that lens, it's become more addressable. We're actually inching towards, I guess, more data points that come into the bit streams that, we're able to identify audiences better from a segmentation standpoint. But I think on the flip side, we talk about demand again, then it's a case of like, do they know the value of this touch point? Can they access it? Is there a kind of illusion that it's still very expensive? I think that's still there. So a lot of education needs to happen across all the markets, all the advertisers, brands even, that this is an option, and we can figure it out with you step by step as to how you can adopt programmatic, and then really kind of benefit from the integration from traditional to CTV and then also to digital video.
Nice. Anannya, what do you see as the power of programmatic for CTV?
Yeah, pretty much actually. I agree with the democratization part, right? You no longer have to book an ad spot months in advance and spend a fortune on it. It's suddenly okay to find the perfect spot on say a live sport or a catch-up content. And the democratization, what we can see from our lens is that there are new client groups who are being unlocked for TV through programmatic. So I'm seeing more crypto, I'm seeing more gaming, I'm seeing more real estate. Because it's different reasons, right? Probably gaming had a cost barrier, but real estate wanted more localized, more location-based targeting, which was probably very limited on traditional TV. So those new client groups being unlocked, that's great. Even for the top shelf advertisers, now they don't have to over-index on buying premium TV spots. They can plan more for ROAS and ROI rather than planning for the hype or some legacy idea of advertising on TV. So I think programmatic is definitely changing that very quickly.
Excellent. Jasmine, are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of us have also mentioned about like how we can use programmatic to measure like across the funnel and then also on the cost efficiency side. My view is it's really good to be precise, but I also want to leverage the power of that programmatic data to reinforce like my propositions even. The more granular you go in reality, let's say I watched a K content this morning, the more I'm likely to be targeted by like the same interests. So I think if we can all try to go not anti-programmatic, anti-targeting, and try to hack the algorithm a little bit, then maybe we will see good results in branding.
Can I make a comment on that? I was going to say something similar. I think it's so important. One of the learnings, I think, and one of the watch-outs, I suppose, as we develop programmatic for CTV is this idea that more data means, we can target better. The mentality, even from the earliest days of programmatic was you have data, therefore you can target, therefore your ROI is going to be, the measurable ROI is going to be so strong. But what you said is absolutely right, because when you're thinking about the largest, the largest screen in the room, you have the opportunity to kind of expand rather than contract and hyper-target. And when we talk about data, we always talk about hyper-targeting, we talk about personalization, we talk about kind of becoming more and more niche.
Yeah.
But actually, this is the opportunity with the data, and I'm going to plug for Insight, right? Because data is not just about targeting. Data is about understanding it's also about understanding and having insight into the audiences that you're serving, finding, for example, adjacent audiences that might be interested in your brand. So there's a real opportunity to expand here, expand audiences, expand spend, expand outcomes, rather than thinking about, how we go down that traditional funnel. I think you're absolutely right. I think we need to challenge, as an industry, we need to challenge ourselves on that.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. It sort of chimes in with what Chris was saying as well regarding just if you're going to be that hyper-targeted, then just go and talk to them.
Go around your house, yeah.
That's it, just go and drop a flyer through the door. Yeah. Traditional. I'm going to pick up a couple of bits that you've said there, all of you, regarding the democratization, the lowering of barriers to entry into TV. And I'm going to throw in AI because I think it's playing a part of everything we're talking about today, really. But it's developing things quickly and it's playing a role across the industry, I'd say. Anannya, in terms of barriers to entry for creators in particular, how are you seeing AI move things along?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a new wave of creators being unlocked with the power of AI who are now creating content for TV. So again, a little bit more democratization there, because now the TV screen is not just limited to, say, the big media houses who have production and all of that. Even individual content creators can use the power of AI, shoot high-quality production content, and put 30, 40-minute episodes twice a week for people to watch. I mean, there are a few creators who are rolling that out, have about 70% of viewership just on TV devices, and they're doing it from a small town somewhere and not with the help of a production house because they have the power of AI at their hands. And that's kind of unlocking a bit of a short-form video TikTok sort of movement for TV. Right now, there's more personalization, like beyond just data, but in terms of content also, like you said, we can find people who are along next to their micro interests, and then attach those movements to brands when they want to find those audiences. So I think that's very interesting. I think on the ads front, and we're already seeing that on CTV, but beyond that as well, that there is hyper-personalization of creative messaging. In real time, on the fly, different creatives being served to people within the same pin code, within the same apartment block, to drive that message home, to build that recall. So I think between content creation and ads messaging, AI is very quickly changing the CTV landscape.
Yeah, Jasmine, is that what you're seeing in terms of your strategy side of things?
Yeah, I really agree with you. I think AI is really opening up new ways of creating content. But also, we've been discussing this internally as a team as well. I think whilst AI can really facilitate the creation of like personalized content, the real value of it is actually empathizing with the consumers and the viewers. So I think there's like a real untapped space about deploying AI as like a utility. So as an example, I'm a big Squid Game fan, and I love Player 333. And then over the weekend, it just dropped, and I've binge-watched it already. But because of social media, it just keeps telling me and feeding me who won at last, and it's just full of spoilers that really disrupted my enjoyment of the show. So if AI, okay, so I think maybe this product is not out in the market yet, but if AI can actually detect that I added Squid Game to my playlist and then block all that social content, giving me the spoilers, then I think I would just really appreciate it as an audience. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that's...
Actually, if I might add, there is something which is happening on that front. So Netflix and a couple of other streaming services are using AI to build out unique storylines for every user. So the content pauses, it gives you two options to pick from: jump from the window or hit the guy. You pick one, and then the story progresses from there. So no matter what you see on social media, you will have your own individual story arc.
Oh, I wish they did that for Squid Game, because like, yeah.
I think Netflix is in the room. Maybe they're outside, we should tell them that.
I think we're innovating here. This is great. I'm enjoying it. Chris, how is AI impacting your day-to-day? How's it working?
I mean, I think, again, from like a sell-side vendor perspective, for us, the main use case right now is around creative control. So, if you're thinking about some of the territories like Indonesia, for example, where you have maybe it could be Ramadan or it could be a religious festival where you need to be sensitive to the creative that's being passed through. Sometimes an A domain or a IB category isn't declared in the bid stream, so you need AI in order to actually unwrap and transcode and identify logos, products, celebrities, people, imagery that could be deemed as offensive or not appropriate in a publisher environment. So I think right now that for us as a vendor is the biggest use case. And then also as well, ingesting data, again, around IDs, trying to tie the gap between people that are on one device going onto another, tied to the IP, but doing that at scale is another use case, but still in its infancy. But I really think what we're going to see more and more of happening now is targeting in live environments. So news, for example, which is quite, there's a lot of binary restrictions on targeting news because it can be, not brand safe, or there could be moments in the show where you'd really like to target if it's a party, if it's a holiday, or a certain moment which seems appropriate for an ad to be placed. Using AI within the stream to transcode that, again, send a signal down saying this is what you're targeting against. I think that's going to become deployed as well at scale. But that's probably, for me at the moment, where I sit in the main use case. But I'm sure, these folks on the buy side probably have a lot more examples as well that they could share.
Yeah, Lara, in terms of the data side of things, how's AI shaping your ecosystem at the moment?
So every single vendor that we work with is pitching us an AI feature, especially at renewal time. So we actually have to go through a lot of different options that are out there and try to figure out. I mean, obviously, data and insight in particular is a very, it's a very powerful initial use case for the application of AI. At ITV, I think we need to step back a little bit with a company like ITV that is first and foremost it's a creative company. So we are about kind of content creation, media creation, journalism. And for sure, AI needs to play a big part in that because obviously, we are a kind of a mass market media company in the sense that our programs appeal to sort of every single demographic. So we reflect what's happening in the business. Our stories reflect what's happening in society, and therefore, if AI is a big part of society, it has to be a big part of our programs. But we have to do it in a respectful way. One, because of we still believe in like the human power behind the creative. And so our initial use cases on the creative side has been very much around, how would I put it, creating kind of optionality and creating speed to value. So whereas in the past, maybe you've got a group of, kind of production artists, et cetera, they spend a week and they can create, I don't know, like 3 different scenarios or mood boards or whatever it is with AI, that can go to 10. You can have 10 different options and you can test much more quickly and you can come to like your like the best idea much more quickly. So I think it's about using it for kind of process efficiencies and creating optionality. So that's kind of on the creative side, but then kind of more on the, on the other side of, the rest of it really. So you've got that optionality in the creative production. But then it's also how do you make that creative work the best for the audiences that you're trying to reach. ITV content is available on broadcast, but it's also available on our streaming app. It's also available on YouTube. And in the future, I mean, it's all about putting our content where viewers are. And AI, I think, has got a very big part to play to, like I said before, make sure our content can expand across all of these different channels, across multiple audiences. And the panel has already talked about how we make, a really good piece of content more appealing to a broader audience. I think AI has got a big part to play in that as well.
Excellent. I think we could probably do an entire panel on AI and CTV, and probably will next year, to be honest. I'm going to move us on, though. I would like to talk a little bit about the perception of CTV as kind of top-of-funnel brand awareness and how it's become a bit more aimed towards performance and ROI in particular. Chris, do you think that there's challenges involved in bringing ROI to TV?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I'm not a marketer, so I don't have my hands on the tools when it comes to the media plan, but I think that, again, there are ways you can now start to connect the loop. All of this, by the way, is underpinned by measurement, and I don't want to go into fragmentation, but if you're working with partners, and again, every country now is implementing their own standards where you've got, like, for example, in Australia, you've got VOZ, you've got BARC in India, you've got in South Korea, all the IP companies are coming together now to federate their data. So there's ways in which you can tie the loop across the different environments, measure sequential targeting, but also, again, if the creative has a call to action, be it a QR code, a unique URL, or again, if it's targeted on the same IP. So in Asia, the mobile phone is an appendage, not a channel, right? So you watch the TV on the screen, but then you might, again, use the QR code. OEMs are now making remotes that have literally shoppable buttons on them, where you can actually do, I think, order what that person was wearing on the show. So there are ways now you can tie that together, but I just think that we're going too quick out the gate around performance expectations in CTV. A lot of talk about it, not much of it is shipped, but I think in terms of how you connect retail media into those environments, work with measurement partners that can give you as much sequential view of the user across all environments as well, even social, then yeah, you could do that. But I'm still on the fence, to be honest with you. I still think it's the branding, but then that could just be my age.
No, fair, no, of course, fair enough. And
I grew up when it was black and white. So.
yeah. Stephanie, how are you seeing this kind of, the innovations, I suppose, in advertising, the ROI, and also how people are experiencing TV across platform?
Sure. So fragmentation is a reality, unfortunately. I mean, when it comes to actually justifying the investments, where we put money in, we're expected to do more with less now. So like, let's say one budget, you're supposed to drive everything full funnel, but how do you make that work? So for our CTV, clients are interested, like they're showing interest as a touch point, it's emerging, it's cool. There's a lot of interactive options that come to the table, but then ultimately they still care about the outcomes, right? So the business outcomes that they're talking about. And how do we integrate that is where we have to be, I guess, more creative. I agree that we don't have like a immediate stopgap solution today, but I think it's about taking measured steps as to, proving that value step by step, so that as an ecosystem, even within the organization, we are, showing that progression, right, of how we can measure this incrementality or like incremental outcomes as we go along. So I think, let's say for CTV, today we think about it as brand building, we look at it as impressions, but how do we move beyond impressions? What's the next level? Or at the middle level, when we run CTV, do we see any kind of uplifts across other business kind of metrics? So are we then set up on the, before we even run the program or the campaign, this is the things that we want to measure. So we establish the baseline, and then we take, look at different metrics, and yeah, basically take a call then, what is the measure of success? And then we can see whether CTV does have that impact that we're looking for.
Jasmine, I saw you nodding there. You're in agreement with Stephanie on this?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what she said. I really like the word incrementality as well. I think that was like a highlight for me. A few months ago, I also tried to do a pilot, not just on CTV, but I think we tried to measure the attention across like multiple channels. So we managed to compare like beyond impressions, the attention unit against CTV, against social, like your Meta, your TikToks, etc. And then I think what's interesting is, whilst I always had the assumption that the attention, yes, would be higher on CTV and on social, it would be way more cost effective. In reality, when we did the maths and we divided like the actual cost per attention unit, we actually found that it's very similar. So maybe it's just a case where structurally, we're not all measuring attention yet, and maybe we just need to really reinstate the value of CTV across different metrics for it to really be popular.
Yeah, I think so. Anannya, what are the challenges that you're seeing? We're going to wrap up soon. I'm being flashed at 0, but I'm going to let us run a little bit because we've got more to get into. So, yeah, Anannya, what are your challenges?
I know pretty much that. I think we're also kind of bringing the yardstick of, say, mobile or desktop devices to CTV. We want to see a click. We want to see a purchase being made. But I think a different yardstick has to be there for measurement in connected TV. It's been limited, but I think it's evolved very, very quickly. I think in our portfolio of clients also, we've seen certain client groups succeed on CTV, run multi-market brand lift studies to understand that the message association and recall is through the roof. And they've seen that value over and over again. I mean, it's not really a measurement thing, but for one of our clients, we had consumers actually walk into their dealership and say that, hey, we saw your ad on TV, and that kind of triggered me to walk in here. So yeah, there is that impact which CTV is delivering, but maybe the measurement space still has to evolve a little bit more, at least to satisfy our need of what we've already seen on other connected devices.
Yeah, and Lara, to you with the challenges you're seeing.
Can I just add one thought to this, and I'll try to be quick, which is what we've seen actually, where we've done kind of outcome measurement and studies, is it's not just about the uplift or the incrementality that you get from each channel individually. What we've seen is when you combine channels, so for example, when you always have TV on, your search investment works so much harder. Your social investment works so much harder, because the search and the social doesn't have to do the job of kind of the awareness and consideration that TV already does for you. So TV and search, for example, works much better together than search alone or search and social alone. And I think that's an important thing to consider here, that we're not measuring channels in isolation of each other. It has to be, and you have to do the work and find out which combination of channels work best, how you measure it, depending on the outcome that your client is trying to achieve.
Excellent. We've gone over, so I'm going to call it a day there. We are being flashed again, but thank you so much for your time, everyone. Really appreciate it. Great to have you. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate it.